This one wasn't planned, but I think the issues are worth talking about a little bit. It's been a while since I've spoken about Insulate Britain, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One reason is I I don't like talking about them. I find them utterly obnoxious and contemptible. But the other reason was I thought they'd sort of quietened down a little bit. I thought some of the custodial sentences that had been handed out and the new policing powers had maybe sent out the message to them that they were going to be regarded as the criminals that they are. I actually think that they are basically terrorists. And my reasoning for that is not just that they fit the legal definition of terrorism, but it's a very simple one, which is that they are using dangerous tactics, putting lives at risk, to further a political goal. If that's not terrorism, I don't know what is. I'm going to read out a report. Specifically, what I'm talking about is a group of activists, terrorists, tried to invade the Formula One track at Silverstone. I mean, this is abhorrent. I'm just going to read it out. It's from Northamptonshire Live, actually, excuse me, from Sky News. Footage emerged on social media of protesters entering the Northamptonshire circuit on the opening lap, shortly after the race had been red flagged for a huge first corner crash. Northamptonshire police confirmed 7 arrests made. To be honest, I even resent them being called protesters. I think it legitimises them, and they've got no legitimacy. Formula One CEO Stefano Domenicali has criticised irresponsible protesters who invaded the Silverstone track during the opening lap of the British Grand Prix. I think he was being modest in his words there. A huge first corner crash involving Joe Guan Yu, George Russell, and Albon, saw the race red flagged with protesters breaking onto the circuit at the Wellington Straight and sitting down on the track as cars headed for the pits. The protesters were dragged away by marshals as drivers sped by, with Northamptonshire police later confirming 7 arrests had been made before the race resumed after an over 50-minute delay. Totally irresponsible, Domenicali told Sky News. People could protest something by voice, but running the risk on a track, jeopardising and having the really serious stuff for the drivers and themselves is totally stupid. It's not acceptable. You could protest whatever you want. There is freedom to speak, but this is really ridiculous. Um, Domenicali later said in a statement, everyone has the right to speak out on issues, but no one has the right to put lives in danger. The actions of a small group of people today were completely irresponsible and dangerous. We thank the police for the great work and we shouldn't be complacent about the risk it's posed to the safety of the drivers, marshals, fans and the individuals themselves. An F1 spokesman told Sky Sports, we can confirm that after the red flag several people attempted to enter the track. These people were immediately removed and the matter is now being dealt with by the local authorities. Northamptonshire Police released a statement on social media after the resumption of the race to confirm that arrests had been made. And this is a tweet. We can confirm that after the red flag, a number of people entered the track. All have been removed safely and a number of arrests have been made. We continue to ask people to be extra vigilant and report anything suspicious to us. The statement said, that's just repeating it. Carlos Sainz, who's a driver, sealed his first Formula One victory in an incident-packed race, with Sergio Perez claiming second ahead of Lewis Hamilton, with the leading trio all having differing views about the on-track protest. I just don't believe jumping onto an F1 track is the way to do it, Sainz said. Yes, I support the cause, but I don't think that's the right way to protest. You could generate an accident. Perez added, it's great to see people fighting for the causes, but we don't want to see people at risk. I'm sure Formula One can do more. Hamilton said post-race that he loved that people are fighting for the planet and we need more people like them. Although Mercedes quickly released a follow-up statement to clarify the 7-time world champion's comments. Lewis was endorsing the right to protest but not the method that they chose, which compromised the safety and that of others, Mercedes confirmed. Northamptonshire Police in Silverstone issued a warning earlier in the week to deter any potential protests ahead of race day, following intelligence received that individuals may attempt to cross the track. Event Commander Chief Inspector Tom Thompson said after the race, I'm really disappointed that this group of people ignored our warnings prior to race day and made the incredibly dangerous decision to enter the track. We offered to facilitate a peaceful event at the circuit, but they instead chose to put the lives of the drivers, marshals, and volunteers at risk. It is incredibly disappointing that anyone would make the decision to do this. Thankfully, we have plans in place for an eventuality such as this, and the group were swiftly removed and arrested by our officers. All seven are currently in custody, where their details are being ascertained. Finally, I would like to thank all the officers and staff, as well as our partners who worked tirelessly on this policing operation. Generally, we have had very low crime rates. Today's incident was dealt with effectively and efficiently, and I could not have asked for more. So, yes, good work by the police. But, the language there is quite something. The drivers are they were very keen to emphasize that they support the protest. Um, I wonder, do they really know what this group claimed to be protesting about? Because this is something that really bugs me, legitimizing this way as protesters. It's a no-brainer that if you're gluing yourself to a motor circuit, you're going to put lives at risk. The Formula One's a dangerous sport. Crashes happen anyway, and no doubt some of their apologists will say that. But that doesn't mean you should callously, deliberately put lives at risk. Crashes happen because of mismaneuvers by drivers and so on. They don't happen because drivers are deliberately trying to kill each other. Now, what these extremists are doing is, I don't know what goes through their head. I don't know if they think almost that if one of them die, it will. I think maybe they see themselves as Emily Davison, the suffragette who famously died at Epsom in 1913. But there's a lot of mystery around that incident. For a start, she bought a return ticket that day, so it's unlikely the fact that she bought a return ticket that she actually wanted to kill herself. She made a very stupid decision. She put the jockey's life at risk. She put her own life at risk, and indeed she died. Yes, she became a martyr. But you know what? Women didn't have full suffrage in Britain until 1928. That was 1913. Film Suffragette with Carey Mulligan kind of implies that was the major turning point. I'm not sure that it was, as much as that was a strong film. I think that event has been romanticized somewhat as kind of getting the wider public on the side of the suffragettes. I'm not sure that it did. I'm not sure that that one incident suddenly got women the right to vote. And you know what? In 1913, the peak year of suffragette activity, they were widely loathed by the majority of the public, men and women. And with good reason. They were planting bombs in letterboxes. They were sending bombs to MPs' homes. It was basically terrorism. There were other suffragettes who were taking more moderate tactics, and they were just as frustrated. And they saw the injustice that women didn't have equal rights. They were not taking those tactics. So I think it's a bit of a distortion of history to conclude, well, the suffragettes done it, so it's all right for us to do it. I cannot think of any other group ever. I honestly can't think of any other group that is so mind-numbingly out of touch with public opinion. I mean, even the IRA, which done some horrendous things, they did have in the Troubles, they did have widespread Republican support. Um, Insulate Britain's supported by nobody. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's not just the driver's lives are put at risk; it's stewards who have to intervene, the police for that matter. The drivers may not be aware of what's going on. They're speeding around the track. It's sickening, to be quite honest. Not surprisingly, Roger Hallam was behind this. Now, Roger Hallam is one of the founders of Extinction Rebellion. I think he's a dangerous man. I think he should be regarded in the same vein as any hate preacher or far right extremist. Talking of the issue of terrorism, there was, of course, a violent attack in Copenhagen yesterday. It isn't being called a terrorist attack just yet, but I think it probably will be. What's being reported is a 22-year-old Danish national has been arrested. Three people were killed and many others injured, so it was a major incident. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of that, whether it was another Islamist attack. There was, of course, the attack in Oslo last week against LGBT bar, or if it's a far right attack. But I think what's happened at Silverstone, it could have been a lot worse. Had the police not acted on time, and the police haven't always handled it in Gillette Britain well, there's been times they've been very hands off. Fair play to Northamptonshire Police, they were active. But on too many occasions, other forces have been slow to act. And I really do think it's incredible. And it must just be incredible luck that no one has died so far, either any of them themselves or people they've put at risk. They have caused at least one woman to have a stroke whilst she was in the jam that they caused. Her son was getting her to hospital. She had a stroke. Now, it's absolutely without question that that was a direct result. Had her son been able to get her to hospital in time, um, she could have been treated. Um, I mean, it's just a no-brainer. What if a woman is in labour and her husband's driving her to hospital, um, and then because she is in a stressful situation, she might miscarry. I mean, the number of scenarios that they could potentially cause is absolutely sickening. And I do believe that they're terrorists. I don't think people should be fooled by the fact they're often Middle England vicars and retired councillors and so on. Um, don't judge a book by its cover. Just because they're a soft spoken 75-year-old retired doctor or clergyman does not mean that they're not capable of extremism. I mean, their callous contempt for democracy, their willingness to put lives at risk, as far as I'm concerned, that marks them out as extremists. And significantly, they haven't changed a damn thing. They have not reduced poverty in this country. They haven't done a thing to reduce carbon emissions. They are absolutely insufferably arrogant. And I think the only thing that they have achieved is getting an increasing number of people to detest them. And, although I think they deserve long prison terms, I understand that. I understand that that will make them feel that they're martyrs. So there may be more subtle, assertive measures are required. I would totally support freezing Roger Hallam's assets. There are founders of this group, and I know they're not centralized, but there are leading figures within the movement. I say absolutely hammer them, absolutely put them under pressure, utterly freeze their assets, make them feel the heat. Because after all, they need to get to these events, whether they walk there or drive there or what. There may be other methods other than arresting them that can really squeeze them out, really make them feel the pressure for once, the pressure that they're causing other people. Um, and I have to say, the drivers were being very moderate in their statements. I would have been a bit more vocal, personally. Um, anyway, I'm going to wrap this up as I'll just be repeating myself, but I'm just disgusted by them. And I'm not the only one. If you look at their Facebook page, I think the rating system, it's out of five. They have 1.5 stars, and virtually every comment is very scathing. Very. Um, but I don't think it's hyperbole to call them terrorists, because I think that if you are using violence or you're putting lives at risk, because they'll say, "Oh, we're not violent," but they are putting lives at risk. So, what's the difference with violence if you're putting lives at risk? Um, Fundamentally, morally, is there a difference? For a political cause, that's terrorism. I believe that is terrorism. Now, you'll notice this picture of Tiananmen Square behind me. That's what totalitarian state looks like. Um, so, people who are saying this policing bill is in any way comparable to that are just not paying attention. In China in 1989, there was very widespread animosity towards some of the things that were going on. Anyone who's looked at that event in some detail will see the context of it. And that's why people who try to say that these new policing powers are somehow taking away the right to protest, they're deluded and they're lying. Greenpeace is lying about that. That's not what's happening. Rather, what it's doing is giving the police powers to take very practical and reasonable measures against these people. Um, but honestly, I'm sick of them being called protesters. I'm sick of them being normalized. They're terrorists, or at best, criminals. But I honestly think it's not controversial to call them terrorists. I think at this point, by deliberately putting lives at risk, that is exactly what they are. Um, and I'll close with one point. A few years ago, I had an opportunity to see a talk by Roger Hallam. He was speaking here at Sunderland Minster, and I regret not going to that now. I felt the way about Extinction Rebellion then as I do about Insulate Britain now. So maybe I kind of the better angels of my nature held me back because I didn't want to just rant and rave. That's why I didn't do it, because I didn't really trust myself not to lose my rag, because I think that Hallam is a complete extremist. I think he's a dangerous individual. And I think that him and the younger guy, I forget his name, with the beard, um, they're fanatics and they are influencing. I think it's possible that some of these people are maybe mentally vulnerable. I genuinely believe that. I mean, it's not a stable act to glue yourself to that. That's not a stable thing to do. So it might well be that some of these people are mentally vulnerable, and I'm saying that without any flippancy. I believe that. So Hallam is a disgrace. I think he should be treated as the demagogue and the extremist that he is. I'll wrap this up. But shame on Insulate Britain. And I know they don't care about public opinion, but this is just for the record. This is what they're doing. They're not doing anything to help poor people. They're not doing anything to save the planet. All they're doing is putting lives at risk, pissing off the wider public, and causing profound stress and misery for thousands of people. It's despicable.